Have you heard the phrase that in order to know where you're going, you have to know where you've been? Well, this is something that I can tell you about. I was in a bad place financially just a few years ago, a really bad place. We're talking credit cards maxed out, not sure if there was going to be money in the bank at the end of the month to feed my family, my husband, and our 4 kids. Things were tight, to say the least. And I can remember the day as if it was yesterday. I was at the market with my kids, getting groceries for the week, had a baby in my arms, had a toddler in the basket, and I pulled out my ATM card to pay for the groceries. And I had to pause and take a breath. Have you ever had that feeling that you didn't know if your credit card or your debit card was going to go through? My heart was pounding, my palms were sweating. I was so nervous and I was embarrassed because there were a line of people behind me. And then I didn't want my kids to know that there was this chance that we weren't going to be able to get our groceries. Well, luckily it went through that day. But let me tell you, there were a few others that it didn't go through. And we were living our life kind of in denial that this is where we were financially. We were living the way we wanted to live and we didn't want to make changes. And thankfully, there were a few things that changed that got us out of that predicament. But I bet some of you know what I'm talking about. It's a terrible feeling to have. But when you come out of it, that's an amazing feeling to have. In college, I also had struggles financially. My mom was a single mom at the time, and she was having mental health issues. In fact, they were so bad that we had to have her institutionalized and we had to send her out of state to get the care that she needed. So I was on my own, working my way through college, working 4 jobs, and they paid me each week, thankfully. But as the end of each week came, I never knew if I was going to have enough money for my groceries or my rent. And as a college student, those were pretty much the only expenses I had. I'd gotten some loans for my books and my tuition, so those parts were covered at the time. But it was pretty tight, let me tell you. And I knew that if I didn't make it, I would be homeless because my mom's house was rented out at the time. So I had nowhere to go. I had no choice but to make it. And maybe that's why we do make it sometimes. When those struggles are so rough and we feel like we're pushed against a wall, maybe that's where the comment of, or perspiration brings inspiration. Maybe that's where that comes from. Because I was determined to get through college. And it did take me 5 years, but I did graduate. And fast forward to about 20 years later, having the kids, working in a family business where I knew that my value was the most it could ever be when I was helping the patients. And that's where I really felt inspired, working with these rare cancer patients. And I knew that that's where I had some value in helping people. But at the time, I was struggling to find my value with my boss, and we weren't getting along. So I decided to, yet again, jump into education to see if I could further my situation, if I could better things for my life and my family. And I learned a lot of things along the way. And I learned maybe the value of the education, but maybe not applying it to my own finances, unfortunately. So there were a couple of lessons that I didn't learn. You know, after graduating from a top 10 MBA program, I had a lot of loans. And I was back in that giant debt position. And there were a few lessons that I should have learned. For example, have you heard about Albert Einstein's 8th wonder of the world? If you have, he talks about compounding interest and that those who learn it, earn it, and those who don't pay it. Well, let me tell you, I was paying it. I had taken out a line of credit at my bank for $1,000. And when I was in the position to, I was paying $600 a month to pay this off. And these were set up on auto pay. So it's not something that you look at every day. And unfortunately, with the busyness of my life, I was not paying attention to my finances. And maybe some of you have felt yourself in this position too. Well, one day I paid attention and I looked at my bank account and I thought, if I'm paying $600 a month, how come that $1,000 bill is not going away? So after I got off the phone with the bank and they explained to me that the interest was compounding daily on top of the interest that was compounding, then I learned the reason why I had failed to learn a lesson in business school and that Albert Einstein had told us about, that those who don't learn it are going to pay it. Well, I was paying it all right. Another lesson that I should have learned from business school was about compounding interest the other way. I had taken out a small 401k. It was about $10,000 and I put it in that same bank. And when a friend asked me how that investment was doing, and I finally, my busy life, take a look at it, I realized something. I want you to put a number in your head right now. How much money do you think that $10,000 IRA made sitting in the bank for about 10 years? Well, let me tell you, the honest truth is it made $41.03. So I immediately learned that there were some other financial instruments that were available to me where I could move that money and rescue that 401k that was just fledgling along. And now, in 6 months' time, it more than 10x'd. And this is something now where I'm pivoting in my career and I'm helping people as a wealth consultant. And I can teach you how to look at your finances, perhaps look at the funnel and see where maybe you haven't been paying attention to your own money. And it's not your fault. These aren't things that we were taught that we are allowed to talk about. And the important thing is that we learn now. And I can help you with this. And I'm really excited to help people take charge of their lives and perhaps create additional income streams for themselves, as well as perhaps pass on a legacy and create generational wealth for your family. If this is something you're interested in, I'd love to talk to you. My name is Mia Tepper, and my number is 310-560-2786. Please text me your name and your time zone, and let's set a time to talk. Don't be embarrassed. Don't feel guilty. Probably doesn't get much worse than what I did. But let me help you change your course. And let's remember that we can all do this together. Abundance is not a limited concept. There's enough for everyone. So let me help you and your family get on the road to financial recovery. Thanks so much for taking the time to listen to me today, and I look forward to meeting you soon.